Hello everyone and welcome to AC Update webinar on fenestration ideas. Fenestration, including the installation of windows, doors and skylights, plays a major role in setting the mood of a structure. Fenestration also significantly impacts a building's energy efficiency by affecting cooling loads, heating loads and lighting loads. As per industry estimates, as of December 2018, the market size of the facade industry in India was around 15,000 crore and witnessed an annual growth rate of 20% thanks to rapid urbanization and increased demand for office and other high-end glass facade buildings. Today on this note, we are going to witness a thought-provoking interactive session on fenestration ideas. Our expert guests will exchange their critical views on fenestration design fundamentals. We will also have an exclusive discussion on the fenestration ideas that transform homes or any other structures into a more efficient and visually appealing space. We are sure it's going to be very informative and useful for all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to introduce you to today's distinguished speakers. We have with us today architect Amita Sharma Menon, co-founder and principal architect at Mu Design. Welcome, Amita. Architect Mohammad Amin Nair, CEO at ANA Design Studio Private Limited, and architect Umesh B. Raje, CEO at Spacecraft Architects. So delegates, get ready to witness an engaging session on fenestration ideas. To take the session forward, I would like to invite architect Amita Sharma Menon. Amita is the co-founder and principal architect of Mu Design Studio, a reputed and pioneering firm. Mu Design was established in the year 2008. The works of the firm include various hospitality-related projects spread over multiple locations in the country. Their approach towards design is a holistic and comprehensive targeted planning. Today, Amita is going to discuss about the importance of fenestration design in building envelope. So let's welcome Ms. Amita.
Thank you, Subhaji, and very good morning to all the panelists and the attendees that we have today. This is a very intriguing topic for me also as a firm because we have been exploring and creating new diversions of fenestrations in terms of what is typically happening around all over the country and the world. I strongly believe that fenestration is what humanizes the mass of architecture and what encompasses our livable spaces. So it's a very important facet of our design industry. And it's good that a lot of innovative techniques, innovative systems are coming forward in this country to take up on a lot of facets of fenestration. And it gives us as designers a lot of alternatives of design solutions to choose from.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So basically, to start up with, this is a project done by us. And as I said, it's what is defining the form to a human understanding. What we have in our country is not just stark facades. We also have a lot of fauna, flora to go with it. And I feel that is a very important aspect of the fabric of architecture, where we have layers in which a building is defined. And so what we do is we take up form versus function as our critical understanding. The function of a building takes up a lot of value in terms of commercial buildings. So we have function as the main criteria to be sufficed. And in that case, we have these false facades that we develop as a commercial understanding. So then it becomes a matter of materials that we use and the elements that are used to define these envelopes. We have glass, we have, of course, a lot of other elements that we've used. We have fins, which are covering the external facade so that we have a understanding of the the radiation that is being affected on the building. Of course, the low E glass and all the innovative solutions that we have today are part of the whole ordeal, but these are more standardized techniques of taking care of building fenestration. And then the third aspect is sound and heat insulation. Now, with this image, I take you to the heritage of India, where fenestration is, naturally a part of the building and not in addition to the entire facade. Of course, the fenestration in our olden heritage was highly evolved. We had a lot of research that went into the elements that were used with respect to the sun paths, the temperatures of the local regions, the kind of rainfall that we have. And all these aspects were taken care of by these smaller elements. So somewhere I feel we need to integrate these solutions into our modern understanding of fenestration and take it up as a challenge of understanding the Indian mentality in terms of fenestration. This is another technical aspect of understanding how fenestration works. So, the heat signature analysis of every building. Of course, if you would pay attention to the close detailing of it, the bare facades are the one which are creating a lot of impact in terms of heat absorption. And what is being taken care of as the cooler surfaces are the inner layers, which are, of course, being offsetted into the facade. So we are not actually getting impact by the exposed temperatures. So we do these kind of analyses also. The next aspect is the energy distribution. Now, because a lot of increasing air conditioning loads that we are facing in this country because of the climate change impact, we also need to look at that as a serious element to be taken care of with respect to our fenestration understanding. Now, this is a design solution that we have done for a commercial building, where we have taken in the heritage of the local spaces, applied it with the modern understanding and the modern derivation. So it's an evolution of design in terms of what is appealing to the eye as well as functional, and at the same time doesn't separate from the fabric of design that is local to the people of Oman. So commercially, because we are not really looking at a lot of open direct access to windows, we can do these kind of solutions. But when it comes to something like a residential project, so this is a residential apartment, small apartment typology, which wherein we wanted the fenestration solution so as to take care of the environment internally. And externally, we had a lot of green foliage to take care of spaces. So this is like a small understanding of what we would describe as a residential solution to fenestration. Although a false fenestration is something that is not very essential in all projects. We do try to keep the understanding of the building more natural.
Now, in this session of AC Update webinar on fenestration ideas, I would like to invite our next speaker, architect Mohammad Amin Nair. Mr. Nair is a renowned architect with more than 2 decades of international experience. In 1995, he graduated from School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi, where he was part of research conducted on bioclimatic architecture with the Bartlett School of Architecture. In 1996, he established ANA Design Studio Private Limited, a full-fledged architecture, engineering, and project management firm with projects across India, West Asia, and Africa. Today, Mr. Nair is going to discuss on how the fenestration segment has evolved for the better in recent times. So let's welcome Mr. Amin Nair.
The slide in front of you is a collection of various kinds of projects. And the language of architecture from the facade standpoint and the way a building talks back to you is purely reflective of the fenestration and the openings that we create in those buildings. I will just quickly try and run through the few projects that I have and then get into details. If you're able to see my cursor, the top left-hand image is a typical apartment building. It's an urban apartment. This particular building is located next to a golf course, and therefore the views were very important, as were the outdoor open spaces that were there. And the transparency of those outdoor open spaces really defined what kind of doors, windows, and fenestrations that we created in the building. Moving forward, the next two images are from a very interesting project that we did for the University of Kashmir. The Kashmir University has several campuses located across the state, and that state boasts of a cold desert climate, which is in Leh, and I will speak about it more. This building is in Srinagar. In both the places, the views were breathtaking, and yet the climatic aspects of how the fenestration behaved was different, what kind of heat gain we wanted. So in Leh, typically you want heat gain across the entire year because the theoretical summer season also is quite cold. Whereas in Srinagar, over time and with change in weather patterns and with the change in climate, it's become a more variable climate where during the winters it gets bitterly cold. It is snowbound and and there's a lot of cold air also whipping around. But during the summer and monsoon season, there is actually a need to cool the building, and it becomes quite warm and humid during those times. These two buildings that the cursor is moving on now are actually our solution for an industrial building in the western part of India. This is in Gujarat. Here the fenestrations defined workspace lighting for the work inside the building. So this is an industrial complex. The building needed to be air conditioned and air cooled for the kind of process that the client was undergoing inside. And the fenestration here is a mixture of allowing diffuse lighting to come into the building and also allowing the workers to be able to see outside and not feel that the building is completely claustrophobic and enclosed. It's been a very successful example of how we treated it. Gujarat, as you know, and especially Baroda, is an extremely high solar index zone. So there's a lot of glare, and yet there is a lot of view. There's a beautiful landscape in the building. So here, if you see the building, you will see that there are these massive overhangs which protect the fenestration. But the fenestration itself is quite conventional in the sense that there are floor-to-ceiling glass, very high performance, and yet the heat gain is reduced drastically. On the bottom left, another of our old buildings, something which is a great favorite of mine. This is something called, building is called the Reliance Technology Group. This incidentally happens to be one of the largest private sector research laboratories in the country. It has 48 specialty and super specialty laboratories, which range from petroleum, petrochemical, packaging, thin film, all kinds of technology which is there. So this building really needed to reflect the edge of technology that was needed. And the site plan was such that unfortunately, this entire facade is west facing, and one wouldn't normally put a glass facade on the west. So we came up with a solution where the facade angles, this curve, the sweeping curve that you see, actually created the facade to become prismatic. And you will see pictures of this in the next few slides, where the prism basically allows the solar rays to fall within an atrium space. So all the heat gain and therefore its removal from the building was taken care by a social atrium, and all the labs fell behind that. So you had a great view, lovely facade, you walk into the atrium, looks great, but the heat gain was controlled by the prismatic effect of the glass itself. So these are various ways in which you can make a building animated and yet remember the performance that is required. I'll go into a few details. This is the Leh campus of the University of Kashmir. Now here you will see, obviously for those of you who visited Leh, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who haven't, I strongly recommend that you do, because it's a place in India where every Indian should once go at least, so you know what it is like. Beautiful Himalayan views all around. And the fenestrations here serve two purposes. We've got transparent high performance glass that obviously allows light to come in and heat gain. But more importantly, you will see these black elements which are there on the facade. These are trom walls. So the TROM wall has a single layer glass which allows heat energy to come inside and traps it in an airspace. There's a black body behind it, which is usually a very high thermal mass. Typically, in this case, we did it with concrete blocks. That heats up during the day. And then it sets up a convective current of air moving where the warm air rises, gets into the building from the top, and the cold air is suctioned into the airspace of the TROM wall. And by using natural convective currents, you're able to warm up the rooms. And this building is a non-air conditioned building. It's made on government spec. It was built by a PWD contractor. But we have experienced that this building actually works even during October, November months in Leh, where the temperature may go down to -4, -5 degrees Celsius during the day. And people are able to just wear a simple sweater and be able to use the building. These are important, very important interventions on design and usability that as an architect and through control of fenestrations we can do, where this building otherwise would have been used only 6 months in a year is now being used 8 to 9 months in a year. And it offers that much more opportunity for education, that much more opportunity for work in an area of our country which is relatively remote. And the magic obviously is basic class 6 physics, understanding that glass creates a change in wavelength of light, the greenhouse effect, and how to use it to our favor. And if you look at the building, obviously you also kind of know that ye na sirf Leh mein hi ho sakti hai. This building can happen only in Leh. There are few other experiments that we did, again, TROM walls in the hostel building, where the angling of the facade was done in a manner where the maximum sunlight could be caught by the rooms. This is a building which is a complex of commercial spaces in West Africa, in Nigeria. Here, the facade is talking a completely different language. This is also a tropical country, very warm, very, very bright sunlight when it's not cloudy, rains a lot. And yet the need for the building was to talk to people who came here. So this photograph was taken just before the inauguration. Now, if you go to this place, hopefully post-COVID, this is thronged with shoppers all day long. So these are all shops on the left-hand side that you see. There are also commercial establishments on the upper floor. But the angling of the facade and the way the shops are done is that the shop front is able to communicate visually with the people who are at the lower level, and therefore the commercial aspect of the building on the upper floor was increased. Typically in commercial locations, upper floors don't do as well. In this case, we managed to drive footfall on the first floor as well because the windows were such that they invited people over. So a lot of salons, beauty products, furniture guys, paintings, etc. are being sold and businesses are doing well here. I mean, pre-COVID, hopefully they will pick up again post-COVID. And then the facade on the top it's a commercial area with offices here. Google Africa is building their office in this building, and they connect beautifully to the people below. And there's a lot of connection between the guys who are sitting in the office and working and the people who are below, and they also become each other's customers, where guys who are working in this office will come down to the restaurant to eat and so on. So the building becomes animated because of that. You can also see this whole bridge facade, which is here, which is also the office of Google. You can see other buildings at the back and connections between various parts of the city. So this is a more conventional, a more people-oriented approach to fenestration and facade design. This building is the administration complex of an industrial building in Gujarat, in Baroda. Again, here you will see that the building. This is of course north, but on the east and west, great shading by the building itself. The way the fenestrations are kept to a maximum, you have a massive, beautiful landscape over here, lovely trees, all the seasons. Even during summers, you have great shading, and the building shades itself. The facade is shaded. We've got a particular reflectance coefficient that we have in the glass. And this building heats and cools itself by radiant technology. So there is radiant floors inside and radiant ceilings on the top, a technology that we can talk about maybe in another episode of this. But today, talking of facades, this is allowing close to 72 to 73% lighting inside the building. The internal lighting is controlled by power over Ethernet. So as the sun rises, the lights keep getting switched off. And as the sun sets, the lights keep coming on. It's a solar responsive facade. Depending upon the glare coefficient, the windows will shade themselves and the internal light is diffused and maintained at approximately a constant 125 to 150 lux through the entire depth of the building. A lot of analysis obviously had to be done using various softwares, But architecturally, this building is modern, contemporary, talks about growth, talks about taking off, etc. So there are so many imageries that have been attributed to this building. But the hero of the piece is these windows, because they allow the building to be experienced inside as well as outside, architecturally, lighting wise, heating wise, comfort wise. This is one of the last in series. Here I chose this photograph because it's got two very distinct kinds of fenestrations that are there. This part covers an atrium inside the building, so it becomes an all-weather space. This is in Srinagar, so it gets very warm, needs cooling during the summers, and gets very cold during winters. It's got snow. This is the atrium public space. This is where the students circulate. But if you look at the classroom spaces, if you look at where people walk, the fenestration patterning and the way it's been designed is different. And because we cater to rising thermals in this area, the way the facade opens also allows the breeze to flow into the building and out through the other side, creating a natural convective current within the building. And with the use of simple ceiling fans, about 40 to 50 students are able to sit in the building and study quite comfortably. We've tracked the performance of this building over the last 2 years, and there have been less than 10 days where people have come back and said that the building was very warm, it was uncomfortable. For the rest of the time, the building manages to ventilate and cool itself. And the beautiful thing is that during winters, guys from other buildings and other faculties also end up gathering here to make use of the atrium space which is there.
So ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite architect Umesh B. Raje. After completing his Bachelor in Architecture degree from Shivaji University, Kolhapur, architect Umesh started his own firm, Spacecraft Architects, in the year 2000. Today, Spacecraft is an ISO 9001-2015 company and has recently completed 3-star Hotel Radiant at Kolhapur, Maharashtra. Some of his ongoing projects include a 3-star Hotel Opal and Hotel Orbit. Both are in Kolhapur again. So today, architect Umesh is going to discuss about how fenestration can add value to a property. So delegates, let's welcome architect Umesh.
Basically, facades depends upon what type of building we are doing. Every type of building cannot be same in external character. Each type of building is different. Commercial buildings are different in character, while residential buildings are different in character. Apartments are different in character. Hospitals are different in character. So each type of building we have to design through our fenestrations and facade what we are designing. So it depends upon type of building, then location where we are designing a particular building. That location also does matters for an architect, where what type of location is there, what is the climatology over there, orientation of the building, is it facing north or is it facing south or is it facing east. So all those aspects do reflect on our building facade and building design. Size of plot also does matters for designing any particular building. What size of plot we are doing? It is a 1,000 square meter plot, then it is different thing. 10,000 square meter plot, then it is a different thing. In some very populated areas, there are hardly big size plots available. So in such cases, buildings are very close to each other, and architect probably should design an outstanding building in such a crowded area, and therefore the main role of fenestration and facade design arises. Every owner or developer wants his building to be different from surrounding buildings, and all considerations like climate responsive facade, durability of material, day-to-day maintenance and its cost, etc. need to be taken consideration while designing good facade for particular building. Then type of building, as earlier I have told you, if it is a residential building, its facade is different. If it is a hotel building, its facade is totally different. Then its treatments are also very different from each other. Height of building does matter for designing a particular facade. If we are designing 4-storied building, then its design is totally different than 8-storied or 10-storied building. If it is a hotel building, then we have to design certain aspects in our mind. What kind of fenestrations we would put up for our particular building. We need to consider factors like wind load, earthquake resistance, etc. for designing tall buildings facade and its exterior materials. Building having 3 to 4 floors is totally different than building having 8 floors. Shape of plot does matters. Because of shape, buildings look different in every aspect. Square and rectangular shaped buildings are different than circular buildings, hexagonal shaped buildings. Materials mainly divided in two types. Conventional RCC buildings, we do conventional way of facade designing is through RCC frame structure, brick plastered walls, and textured surfaces we do in particular as we do usually. And nowadays in modern buildings, what we do is PEB buildings with lightweight drywall constructions we use, high performance glasses we use, exterior high pressure laminates we use, ACP panels we use for exterior designing. And rapid and fast construction is need of an hour at present days. And new buildings are coming up towards more performance oriented in terms of water usage, renewable energy, solar lighting and air conditioning, etc. Fenestrations and color also plays a major role in fenestrations for big different forms along with good color combinations add altogether different environment to the surroundings. Solids and voids also play very important role in fenestration and visuality to the occupant and gives very beautiful skylines to the occupant actually. Some projects we need to do in phase wise for this particular project. Earlier, initial phase was only for ground plus 2 floors. So while designing this building, building was totally 10-floor building. But initially it was in first phase, client wanted to do this building only in 2 or 3-story building. So that is why this particular design of this particular hotel building is done in such a way that only 2 floors we designed earlier. So this band we have put deliberately, and then next phase will continue up to 6 floors, and 7th floor we have this band, and additional 3 floors will be constructed at later stage. As this building is facing west, so deliberately we have added shading devices for all those windows opening towards west, and these are aluminum mesh we have proposed for this particular building. Exterior HPL also we have cladded this. Then coming to this next slide, these are all commercial buildings basically. This one is first one which I am showing is a hotel building facing north again. So here we have used mostly glass because facade is facing fully north. So laminated glass we have used for most of the structure. Ground plus 7 building. This particular building is a commercial development in Kolhapur only. So facing north, south and west. So we have used here double glass with HPL again, ACP some added, we have some part we have done in double glazing. Exterior is done in reflective glass, and inside we have used regular aluminum windows which give thermal insulation for the occupant. Then some for private bungalows also we do interesting fenestrations depending upon its location, which side this is facing, which side this building is basically orientation of the building. If it is facing north, we can play with maximum glass. If it is facing west, we have to put some sun shading devices for balconies, for some part of windows, we have to put some metal mesh or inserts of some shading devices we have to add, so that that occupant can get maximum comfort for using that particular building. For hospitals, again, treatments of the facades are different. We have to play with some shading more devices. Again, construction material we have to change. Modern day hospital buildings are more in cladding. We are doing some brick stone finish vitrified tiles we are using for exterior cladding purposes. We are doing some textures for buildings. Then for south-west facing buildings, sunscreens are necessary to reduce heat and give more thermal comfort to the end user. For balconies, service duct screens are necessary to hide pipes, AC, plumbing, electrical equipments we can hide through these screens. So it helps us to do fenestration in a very interesting way for hospital buildings also. And for star hotels, again, it is totally different. Hotels or hospital buildings, maintenance, we need constant maintenance. So exterior treatments are need to use in very careful manner. Exterior facades are first impression for the visitor, and it should be timeless in character. So such type of buildings are need to be done in very careful and thoughtful manner. So fenestrations again are different for institutional building. This particular building we are doing nearby Kolhapur, and this will be first IGBC rated building, institutional building in this particular region. Here we are using porotherm clay, hollow clay blocks for this particular school building. This facing south side, main entrance is towards south. So entrance lobby and atrium foyer, we have done some metal fenestration here. We are doing this in metal screen. Alphabets are used, A to Z alphabets are used for this screen. And entrance foyer is treated in such a way that students who are, there is a central courtyard for the school. And while using the space inside, controlled airflow is there. Water body we have placed at the front side. So while when in summer days when hot air is coming, so due to this water body, air gets cooled and we can get comfortable breeze inside the school for the occupant. And windows we have covered with PVC screens. So wood saving devices are casted for this particular school building. Fenestrations, concluding to this particular fenestration point, fenestrations are essential and crucial part of building design basically. It helps to enhance the overall comfort of building occupant as well as gives a very interesting character to the building. Perfect balance of masses, material application, proportions results in better building appearance externally. It is not only meant for decoration of building, but for the improvement of the building life and comfort of occupant.
What is your fenestration idea that transforms homes or other structures into a more efficient and visually appealing space?
Fenestration, like I said earlier, is part of the entire fabric of the structure in itself. To make it more appealing is not an additional effort, but it comes naturally as part of the planning process in itself. And personally, what we do is, which I think all of us have been discussing, is understanding the local climatology and being responsive to that. So that's a very key factor, and that is what defines the building ultimately as a local entity. It also matters as to what kind of materials you end up using. So the more explorations possible in that sense are better, depending on the kind of structure, whether it's commercial or residential, or what is the client output that is required. And thirdly, we also look at a lot of color value that we add to a structure in terms of, again, the materials and the finishes. We try to stay as natural as possible, as close to the fabric of the local understanding. And so with that, we have our own elements that we use to sort of define the structure in itself.
So fenestration selection is an important criteria to eliminate unwanted sound and achieve the desired level of aesthetics. So could you explain 5 key considerations for choosing the right fenestration for commercial buildings?
Obviously, the first thought that comes to mind is the comfort of the occupants, both from the visual and the heat perspective. So obviously the quality of overall insulation, both thermal and acoustic, will play a big role. Glazing quality is a big one. Typology of framing is another big one. But even more important that we feel is thermal bridging and the avoidance of thermal bridging. That is going to be a very large consideration. Sometimes I've also seen, and this is something that used to happen in our initial practice and we've worked very hard to overcome it, is that you may choose the finest technology to take care of the actual physical opening that has been created in a building. But the interface between that opening and that tech gets sometimes missed. So what happens between the edge of the frame and the building itself is actually a very critical factor of how the building will behave and how the technology that you've used is going to behave. And finally, I would say that the choice of movements and hardware is again a very, very large, very interesting area of design. There's a lot of automation now available for both opening and closing of fenestrations, as well as internal and intrinsic shading, which is possible. So doors and windows or fenestrations would open depending upon a program that you set with the building. So depending upon light, depending upon temperature, depending upon air quality indices, the building will open and close itself to vent out foul air from inside or to take in fresh air. And unfortunately, in our country, fresh air has become a bit of a a bit of a difficult commodity to achieve. So it's actually now working the other way, where the internal air in the building needs to be protected from what's happening outside. Equally, there are shading devices which are intrinsically available in windows, where between two layers of glass or between two layers of surfaces that you've chosen, which may be polycarbonate, whatever else it is, you would have materials that tilt and twist to add shadow and control the building. And they also help to control glare. So a lot of our work now gets done on IT-based devices, computer screens and so on. How they react to natural light coming in is probably an important factor. So I don't know if I've been able to cover 5 as you asked for, but these are the thoughts that come to my mind for how we would design the tech behind the opening.
Very well analyzed, sir. And most probably what I could feel that you are talking about the kind of smart features of the tomorrow's or the futuristic fenestration solutions. So Architect Umesh, you were talking about
if I may, I would like to clarify here that these are not solutions which are futuristic or for tomorrow.
Right.
Actually, a lot of this tech has been available since yesterday. It's a matter of understanding how you integrate it into the building, rather than it becoming an afterthought where you say, okay, now this building will also have 5% budget in automation. If you build it within the system of the building itself, it's not expensive tech to put in. And also, if you look at the total cost of ownership, and you model your building energy performance from the standpoint of how much money is being paid every year for electrical consumption or replacement of HVAC parts. And you say, guys, if you pay 50 lakh rupees more today or 1 crore of rupees more today on a building project is 100 crore rupees, it's a 1% difference on budget. And it pays back in 27 months or 30 months or 35 months. Any smart savvy investor would pick it up. So really, it's not tech which is tomorrow. We've used it in a lot of buildings and have been using it. And I'm certain a lot of my colleagues in the professional business are already doing it. And I also would like your platform to encourage this idea that very high tech being used in buildings is not something which is a future sexy thing that we will do. It is something that we can do today and at Indian rupee cost that we're doing.
Glasses are definitely very important factors nowadays, what buildings we are doing. Mostly our architecture influence is from Western countries, and earlier we used most of the architects 10 years back or 15 years back, they started using glasses in most of the commercial buildings. And they realized after some time that only putting a glass or reflective glass doesn't solve the problem. Doesn't solve the, because lot of heat gain is there inside the building, because our country is a tropical country. We have a lot of sunlight in the daytime, where we need to control sun in certain directions like south, if it is facing south or if it is facing west side. Then we need to control solar heat gain and solar lighting also in a very desired manner. So nowadays, thermal glasses are available, insulated glasses are available. Again, laminated glasses are available in different, where U value is, again, we get in different U values for these glasses. So depending upon the user and its usability, what kind of glass we want to put, how much daylight we need to take inside the structure. Depending upon that, we can use different types of glasses, like double glazing is there, double insulated glass we can use. We can use laminated glasses are available nowadays in the market. Different type of reflective glasses are available for each and every glass. There is a different thermal insulation properties there. So all these glasses we can use for different applications, and definitely it adds value to the structure. It adds value to the end user also. But we need to study thoroughly and then do the application for that particular building.
This is a very interesting debate, and I think it goes on in architectural circles very often. And for all of my colleagues who work with developers, there is this general perception that they will come into your office and then they will ask you to do the cheapest thing possible from a capitalist perspective. And we need to sort of take a step back. These are very smart people. He probably drove into your office in a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW, right? He didn't buy it because it was cheap. It is for us to package our information and communication in a manner where the relative benefits are understood by the person who's investing. So we've had both kinds. We've had the kinds who would say, you know what, you make me spend 2 crore rupees extra on this building, I'm still going to get 40 rupees a square foot. So why should I spend it? And we've also had people who've said that, okay, if you make me spend this extra 2 crore rupees or 3 crore rupees or whatever it is, how do you think I'm going to be able to recoup my money? And it is ultimately, I think it is about communication. And I believe Mr. Rajesh said something very interesting right now. He said that there needs to be the application of the prudent mind, a lot of research and thought before you tell your client what to do. And we need to move out of this mindset that, oh, you know, this is going to look very nice. It's very beautiful. Your building will look very different. Again, you know, he bought himself, whatever, he drives an E-Class. He didn't go to the showroom and said, give me a different E-Class. He just said, these are the facilities, these are the features, give me an E-Class. And I think that's really where sometimes we miss the bus of doing back-end research, of understanding what is going on in terms of technology, of collaborating with the industry, asking industry to come back, seeking answers to our questions, framing our questions in a manner where people are able to come back and say, sir, these are solutions that we can do. And then look at cost. The other thing is, it's about how widespread the usage becomes. And you know, it's you look at the cost of computers. I started buying computers when in 1995, 96, just when I was out of college. A decent computer used to cost 60,000 rupees at that time. A decent computer today also costs 60,000 rupees. The performance is different. So that industry has collaborated and worked together to be able to create a system that you buy, and you pay that money for better and better and better performance. The building industry needs to learn from that. Unfortunately, a lot of times, I mean, imagine if you were buying computers and you said, well, you know, we have a USB port, but a Dell USB port will behave differently from a Vaio USB port. You need to buy a different USB device. It doesn't work like that. No, everybody's USB is the same. And if architects and colleagues like Mr. Raje, you know, Ms. Menon, all of us put our heads together and say, okay, you know, these are standards that we're going to say we're not going to compromise on. And the industry now needs to deliver a price which is equivalent to that performance.
Payback period of 27 months. So is it a mere claim, or you have some successful case studies on that?
It depends upon the TCO, on the total cost of ownership, and what you are doing to the overall buildings. You will not have payback of just the fenestration by saying, oh, you know, have better quality glass, and now it's going to pay back in 27 months. You need to look at what kind of tech you're using in air conditioning, how efficiently you are designing your heat loads itself, how efficiently you are looking at the building performance. Are you going to stick to 22 plus minus 1 degrees, or can you talk to your client and say, can we look at 24 plus minus 2? This simple difference between 22 plus minus 2 and 24 plus minus 2 can put a difference of 30 months to the recouping of the money that you're spending. You look at saving somewhere else and putting money somewhere else. So the question of recovery doesn't arise. That I've already saved money on flooring. I've already saved money on structure. I'm using 3.5% less steel. I've saved you 2 crore rupees. Now put one more and buy this tech for 3 crores. That 1 crore will come back to you in 27 or 24 months. So yeah, to answer your question specifically, there are several case studies where recoveries have happened in 18 to 27 months and 18 months too. There have been clients that we've worked with who've tracked their building performance, come back to us after a year and saying, I mean, you said my monthly electrical bill is going to be 4 lakh rupees. It's coming to 6.5. Can you please come back and check what's wrong? And we've discovered that there are issues with calibration of BMS or the way. So, you know, you need to have that communication and that collaboration with your client, even after the building has been inaugurated and they've given you a bouquet of flowers saying, thank you very much, it looks very nice. You need to go back after a year, 2 years, 3 years, put sensors in, ask them to give you data on BMS. And they do. I mean, people are probably in India and in most of the markets that we work in, which are developing countries, except for mechanized machines for manufacturing, building continues to be the largest capital expense that any industry would make. And to expect that those guys are not interested how it is behaving is very surprising. So गाड़ी के लिए तो पूछते हैं ना कितना देती है. So building के लिए भी पूछना पड़ेगा कितना देती है. And when you ask that question, you also get the right answers.
See, if we are doing a hotel building, even for a hotel client, everybody wants this building to be economical. But we have to educate clients for certain criteria, like as earlier said by Amin also. We have to educate our clients initially because they have some fixed mindset in their minds. They have some fixed ideas in their mind. Like my building will be done in this and this square foot of costing will be there. So if I am going to do some additional costing for that, I have to justify that cost. I have to convince him that this particular thing will cost you in longer term. It will pay you back in certain 5 years or 7 years of time. If I'm putting some additional glasses, say double glazing, if I have suggested him to use for west facing windows, I have suggested him to go for double glazing, DG glasses we can go for. So I have to convince him that your heat load will be less. For AC load, you can save in you can save more in air conditioning cost. And even though you will be putting more on glass, you can save in your electricity bills. As you have commercial bill, so there will be a marginal saving in your electricity and air conditioning cost. So this particular, yes, there are pros and cons in each and everything, but we have to educate our clients for doing something new, for doing something innovative things. We have to educate our.
The modern understanding of fenestration, what works with these inspirations is a lot of stones which are locally available, which are naturally responsive to the climate around it. So let's say if we come to the coastal regions of Maharashtra or the Konkan belt, we have laterite stone, which is a highly porous material, which also is responsive to the climate that we have over here. You go towards Rajasthan, you have the sandstone, which is locally responsive to that understanding, where it doesn't, trap heat and make the internal space more difficult to bear with, rather cools the space naturally. When it comes to certain design or techniques of construction, we have cavity wall systems or such buffer elements that we can use that of course are very important with respect to fenestrations. Personally, our firm dealing with hospitality, we do use a lot of these elements to sort of give that the resort or the hotel that feel that is required to also take care of the elevation of it.
So, see, BMS is pretty integral to most buildings now. The quality of sensors and the price of sensors has come down drastically. There are open protocols available like Modbus and BACnet, which work pretty well. You don't need to be limited to a particular vendor or a particular supplier to be able to study these things. So if you place sensors reasonably, right at the design of the BMS itself, they will offer you adequate results of how the building is performing. So simple kilowatt metering, chilled water metering, daylight metering, number of burning hours of lights, etc. They would give you a pretty decent indicator. And there are now a lot of agencies who have standardizations available. So, Griha, LEED, BREEAM, all of them give you a standard building operating parameter that a building of this size in this region of this kind should typically in a year be so many kilowatt hours of energy. And you can benchmark your performance and say, okay, they said 100, I'm doing 92, so I'm 8% more efficient than them and so on. So it's actually a pretty straightforward system. So long as it is integrated in the building design, you can't add on these things. I mean, okay, the answer to can is always yes, you can add them on, but the benefits are limited. If you're designing right in the beginning and you're integrating the system into the building, you have a pretty decent shot at being able to monitor your buildings and know what they are doing to stuff. In fact, you can also monitor, and it has happened to us in a particular case with a client where he came back to us saying that the building energy performance that you said is not being achieved. It is off by 40-50%. And so we first obviously went back to the drawing book, checked all the calculations. Things were still pointing in the direction of savings. So we did a spot check of the building and realized that the BMS had been switched off, and the maintenance team were having a nice time in the chilled water, in the chilling room, sleeping during the afternoon while putting the chiller on to full capacity. Obviously, the building was misbehaving and it had different energy. So you also have operational issues and things that you can point out to the client and improve their own HR performance and so on. But it's actually quite simple to do. It's very, very, your mobile phone is a great device. I mean, such a little technology that you can do. Buildings, you can do whatever you want with the tech.
The first question is from Hemant Thakre. Is asking that what software do you use for thermal energy simulation?
BIM is, if we use intelligent package for building maintenance, that will add for building simulation. There are many softwares available in the market. building maintenance behind you can use, and I think that will add more value to the performance of the building.
Software wise, I think there are a lot of alternatives. I think a lot of companies have their own systems also to monitor these parameters. Yeah, so nothing in particular, but I also see that it's required to be a part of the green building system. So if you have IGBC or LEEDs or whoever that you are monitoring with respect to your green building analysis, those kind of compliances is what is necessary to be checked in a software. So most of the BIM softwares take care of these integrations. What we work with, when we work with Revit-based solutions, we have integration with almost all of them. So that's not an issue.
Fenestrations typically, especially if you're looking at tropical, subtropical India, apart from the roof, which is usually opaque in most buildings, and in multi-story buildings, the roof may be just 5% or 10% of the total built-up area. Your biggest energy, heat gain or loss is going to be through fenestrations. And to be able to achieve any kind of benchmarking, until and unless that element is worked upon properly and analyzed and specified well, one would not be in a position to achieve any rating. To go back to the first part of your question, how important is it to have certifications? It is critically important, because otherwise, how do you decide on a standard? If there are no agencies that define a standard saying this building should have the average energy rating is so much, and you are now this much % better than what the standard is at current technology. And if those things are not regularly updated, you would never have any benchmark to be able to say I'm better or worse than the other one.
How do you see the use of wood as a material, and what are the pros and cons of using wood in our as fenestration material for a building?
Wood for part of fenestration, yes, we can use wood for fenestrations, but in a very controlled manner, I can say, because wood has some pros as well as some cons also. Wood is a very good thermal insulator. It gives very good thermal insulation property. But once we started using it for exterior purpose, we need to do some additional treatments to protect that particular wood, because it gets warped. Warpage is a big problem in summer days. In rainy season. In summer days, it gets again warped due to heat. So heat and water we need to control from those elements to the wood. And wooden parts, yes, we can do wooden louvers. There, wood is available now. Exterior treated wood is available. EPE is a material which we can use for external treatments, for external protecting facades, for doing some screens, for doing some window treatments. We can use wood in a very interesting way. We can add those wooden features. It depends upon design, what kind of theme you are going and what kind of material you are applying to the particular building.
Okay.
So primarily, there's a lot of research and debate that goes into wood being used as any kind of construction material. Right from the factor whether it's a sustainable material or not. So I would say certain types of woods are, certain types of woods aren't. So wood that has been responsibly grown, cured for a purpose of construction and then taken in is perfectly fine. Wood, of course, has been a traditional material of construction for a long time. So fenestration or not, it is definitely a part of our industry. But considering the current scenario of climate understanding, it has to be responsibly sourced and actually monitored to that extent where, there are agencies. There's now, I believe, the government of Canada has a whole system wherein they grow the wood, source it and distribute it efficiently in such a way that it's not actually harming the environment. So yeah, there are those kind of elements that work. But other than that, if it is something that is locally sourced and not taken in, I think as designers, as planners, we are responsible somewhere for that to make sure that these elements are taken care of.
So what kind of challenges, Mr. Amin, you see in today's architecture in terms of maintenance when it comes to facades? And what are the technologies again to be considered for maintenance again?
Thank you. Very interesting question. You're right. I think firstly we need to understand that the building design, any element, has to be looked at from the total life cycle of the building, and maintenance is an important integrated part of it. In terms of technology, the first one, of course, is access technology, which allows you either rooftop or floor hung cranes for accessing various parts or difficult to reach parts of the facade for basic cleaning and ensuring that there are no animal infestation over there. There are inbuilt drenching systems available which can wash facades and also act as a fire safety barrier in case of a fire. There are coatings available now for facade which are anti-static and therefore easy to clean, where the dirt and the grime and the smog does not form a chemical bond or a physical bond with the surface of the building and is easy to clean. All these three things need to be looked at right at the time of design, and the detailing of the building needs to be done in a manner where not only does it look nice when it's built, it continues to look timeless 10 years later also if the basic maintenance is being done. And the third and the final aspect would obviously be the kind of material that is used for maintenance itself, the chemicals that get used, what is the breakdown time for those chemicals, what is the half-life, what does it do to the environment once it gets washed away. So you have a nice, clean, shiny facade, but you've added tons of detergent to the system by cleaning it. Those kind of things, obviously, it's better for the architects and design team to specify to the maintenance team on what they should be using, or at least have a guideline on the kind of effluent that is going to come out of the building by the maintenance activity.
How far you see the use of UPVC popularity as an alternative for wood, and why UPVC is a preferred material for fenestration rather?
UPVC is definitely, it is available in the market nowadays. Better than wood, definitely, because cheaper as compared to wood. Treated wood is very costly as compared to UPVC. UPVC is available in different shades now. Even we get different shades of wood in UPVC nowadays. It has got very good thermal and acoustical properties also. So UPVC windows we are using in most of our private bungalows, most of the commercial buildings also we are using. It has got a fantastic acoustical property. It has got very good thermal insulation property. If we go for DC glasses along with UPVC windows, we get very good results for air conditioning, as well as we get very good results for heat gain and heat avoiding any glare heat also inside the building. So we use UPVC for a different type of, even for fenestrations we are using now PVC as a material. PVC screens are available in the market for hiding, for protecting some balconies, for protecting any shading device, for creating any shading device for glasses. We use PVC material nowadays. It is very lightweight, very easy to construct and easy to maintain also. So PVC is very nice, and UPVC is also a very good alternative for wood nowadays.
It's a very well-defined solution for, as Mr. Rajesh said, for sound insulation, considering that's also a major issue in most of the cities. So it gives you a very good sound barrier. And as far as the visibility factor is concerned, we as designers get that fluid understanding, so we can have more open apertures, more flexibility in terms of our planning with these kind of solutions.
I think it's very difficult for an architect or any professional to say that this material is better than that material. It is contextual. It depends upon what kind of building you have. It depends upon the size of openings that you need to keep. It depends upon the performance that you have. But I do believe that there is a lot of place for three kinds of material that will happen. UPVC, we've discussed, my colleagues have stated the obvious advantages. It also has certain disadvantages in terms of the size of openings that you can keep, etc., and the warpage that happens because of the lack of stability. The stability comes from the steel impregnation, not from UPVC itself. However, it's a great material. I mean, if it's engineered well, it's a great material to use. I am a strong votary of using timber in construction because it is the only renewable construction material available. So if you know, again, expense is a relative term, and then we have adequate land mass to be able to create our own social forestry and renewable forestry. We, you know, Forest Stewardship Council exists in India as well. It's a matter again of bringing it back. But I think the big advantage that would come would be from industrialization of these processes. So timber has some great qualities, and then it also has issues with climate. So can we use hybrids of aluminium and timber, or hybrids of aluminium of steel and timber, and create a product that marries the best of both, where the dimensional stability and the warpage is taken care by the impregnation, and the other qualities of thermal insulation, renewability, and so on, and even the look and feel. I mean, timber is timber. At the end of the day, the way it looks, no other material can actually look. You know, depending upon again the context that you're using it. So it is there's a lot of opportunity for investing in technology and doing research and creating materiality as well as products out of these materials that are available. India's got a very strong extrusion industry. We also have a great timber industry, which we are somehow not respecting very much. But if these two come together to create a product that is dimensionally stable, that is performance-wise stable, has great hardware, has great opening and closing qualities, and is say 40% or 50% of it is renewable, with almost 50-60% of its life cycle cost coming from renewable material. I think these are great opportunities for creating materiality and architecture within this country.
How safe are these material in terms of fire safety, and which is the best material in terms of fire safety for fenestration?
Aluminium, I guess, with the current market in mind. UPVC, of course, a few companies do have certain standards developed where they are providing a certain extent of fire safety. Treated wood, no matter how strong, is still susceptible to fire unless it's treated for it. And yeah, so far, with respect to fire safety, I think aluminium sections work very well in that sense.
Aluminum is better fire. If we consider fire safety, aluminum is better for wood and UPVC. Thermal insulation, aluminum is also, if we go for system windows, aluminum is also at par as compared to UPVC. It is also at par with thermal insulation properties.
Glass, one needs to understand that it's apart from the aspirational aspect of making a building look like quote unquote international. There is a very important reason why glass has become so popular. And that reason is actually industrialization and engineering. No matter what you do, the quality of average concrete constructions in the country is not very good. It's not leveled, it's not finished. You depend upon very, very low tech, low skill people to be doing block work and plastering. And this is a great material that whatever mistakes have been made on the fundamental construction, you come and put glass on top of it, looks nice. So everybody from a 100th floor building to Nathu Halwai's facade is now made of aluminum and glass. That is really the reason why it has become so popular, not because of its performance. But if you do want to use high performance glazing, then angling of the facade is a good example. I mean, and today I think Amita said that most of the Revit based or any software that is working on BIM, whether it is ArchiCAD or Revit, allows you those quick simulations and calculations in terms of angling it. And if you have the smartness of detailing to be able to make junctions that come in at that angle and are able to fit in modules, it's a great example. Thermal bridging is easy to deal with now with the kind of extruded sections that we have. There is obviously, with angling of facades, one of the important things in multi-story buildings that comes up is smoke sealing between floors. That becomes a little more difficult, and it can have issues associated with it. But these are all good examples of the way that you can use materials to optimize them and also to avoid the inherent pitfalls that come with using them.
A lot of scapes that you would see in a city or an urban setting is that quick boost to the elevation that, okay, just glaze it and it's taken care of. It's also somewhere a solution to the waterproofing issues that a building might have had at an earlier stage. So so that's a sort of a mental setting that we've got.
Same thing happens here. See, construction methodology is basically our construction industry is not very well trained, unfortunately, in India. So there are a lot of mistakes, as earlier said by both of my colleagues. A lot of mistakes happened in while doing some construction. Plastering quality is not up to the mark. Some RCC build part which we have done earlier is not up to the mark. So to hide those things, builders mostly they have preferred structural glazings for as it is very fast in doing the thing, and it gives very what we can say very advanced look to the building and very modern look to the building.
So thank you, panelists, for exchanging your valuable thoughts on today's topic, SE Update webinar on fenestration ideas. Delegates, we hope you have enjoyed the session thoroughly. There are critical views shared by our panelists, architects especially. So before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Architect Amita Sharma Menon, Architect Mohammad Amin Nair, Architect Umesh B. Raji. And I would also like to thank my editor, Mr. Prasad Naya, for taking this initiative. So with this, we would like to announce closing of today's session, request you to stay tuned for more such sessions. Thank you and goodbye.